Hey guys, my name is Shirley and welcome to Learning with Purpose, where it's all about helping you achieve your goals. Today I'm just going to be taking you through how I made my notes in the HSC. I just feel like this video is necessary because we're always told to make notes, but no one ever really teaches us how to make notes. Please don't use this as like a complete source of truth because everybody makes notes differently. I'm different. The way that I learn is going to be different to the way that you learn. So this is just what worked for me. So I just want to preface this video by saying I'm going to be using business studies, and in particular we're going to be looking at the operations section of the syllabus, and even more particular we're going to be looking at the operations process part of the syllabus. So yeah, when we're going through today's notes, just know that that's what we're referring to. In terms of making notes, the first thing that you got to do before you even start making notes is actually attend class and actually learn the content. So I went to class, and then like as the teacher would be speaking, I'll just be jotting down notes. So that's like the first thing that I did. Just went to class, made sure that I was really attentive in class, engaging with the content and just trying to learn it from there. So then after that, what I would do is I'd go home and actually start to compile my notes. So what I'll do is first I would read and highlight my textbook and all other resources. So during my HSC, pretty much for most of my subjects, I didn't just use one textbook. So I used the textbook that my school prescribed, and then I also use like, you know, those Excel textbooks and like other types of resources, just so that I could spice things up a little bit and just give myself a bit of like a competitive advantage, just so that when I'm actually compiling my notes and compiling my responses, it's not things that just like a teacher would be seeing on every other paper. So yeah, before I even actually start typing or writing my notes, I would read a portion of that textbook first, make sure that I really understand the portion, and then I'll start writing my notes. So I've attended class, I've been jotting down notes in class, I've read my textbook, I've been highlighting key terms, and also in other resources. Then now I'd actually start to type them. Some people prefer to write their notes. I just prefer to type, just because it was neater when it was typed up. I could access it from multiple devices. I could have it printed out. I could go back and add some things to it later on. I could take out things that I found irrelevant. I could insert pictures a bit easier. So for me personally, I just found typing notes more practical. Okay, so when it comes to actually writing your notes, you gotta make sure that you have a systematic way of making your notes. So for me, I had a system. So regardless of whether I was making my operations notes, I was making economics notes, SOR, I just had one system that was consistent throughout all my subjects. And that system was one, I would always have a heading. I'd have that in a particular font. I'd have my subheadings in particular fonts. And then I'd also have like my bigger headings in like certain fonts. So yeah, I use bold underlines and just different formats to make sure that I understood which content was coming under which subheading. Another key thing that I feel like really set my notes apart, whenever I was making my notes, I would have my syllabus opened next to me. Now if you're going through your HSC, you will know that your syllabus is key. Your syllabus is Bible. Your syllabus is your source of truth. It is your everything, pretty much. So for every section of my notes, I'd make sure that I have the relevant dot point of the syllabus. So if we look here, I've got operations processes, then I've got the first dot point which is in the syllabus, which is inputs, and then under that I'd make all my notes relevant to the inputs section of that dot point. I just feel like it's good to incorporate your syllabus into your notes because one, it really helps you make sure that you've covered each and every single bit of content that you can possibly be asked. Two, it makes sure that by the time you get to your HSC exam, you know the course like the back of your hand because you've been seeing that syllabus over and over again. I hope that makes sense, and I really do hope that you guys try that out because yeah, it was one of the things that really set my notes apart, and I feel like that's one of the things that really helped me know whether I was prepared or I wasn't prepared for a certain section of the syllabus. Another thing that I really like to do is I like to bold key terms. So anything that was like a definition or like a key term, I would always bold that. I always found that if I had it bolded, I was more likely to use those key terms in my responses. So because they're bolded, they're in my attention more. So I found myself using them in responses more and just, you know, making my responses stand out a bit more and just making them sound more sophisticated. Okay, another thing that I think this was golden, it was incorporating case studies into my responses. So for a lot of subjects, they really look for you to use case studies examples and statistics in your responses. So yeah, for every single syllabus dot point, I would always make sure that I have an example for it. Okay, so for example here we've got the dot point sequencing and scheduling. So I've got my content underneath sequencing and schedule, I've got my diagrams, I've got my tables, then at the very bottom of that I've got my Qantas case study on sequencing and scheduling. So now I know that for that dot point I've got my content and I've got my relevant case study set and ready to go. So yeah, I just find it's really important to incorporate your examples, your stats, your case studies in your notes. That way when you're revising your notes, you're integrating that with real business examples, you're integrating that with the real life scenarios and just solidifying your understanding better. And regardless of what question you're asked, one, you know the content, and two, you know the relevant example. Another thing that I found really useful was using shortcuts for things. That just helped me like type my notes faster. And another thing that I struggled with is, how do I know what to put in my notes? You know, you don't want to just regurgitate your textbook, and you don't want, 50 pages worth of notes, but then again you don't want your notes to be so summarized that there's not enough in there. So the question that I would always come back to is this a piece of content that I feel like I would be asked on, or is this a piece of content that could potentially be in a multiple choice question or an essay question as such? If the answer was no, then I wouldn't include that in my notes, but if the answer was yes, then I would include that in my notes. So yeah, this is pretty much the main strategy that I used. It pretty much works across quite a lot of subjects, I feel. If you guys want me to do another video where I talk about English notes, because I feel like those ones are really hard to make, let me know. And yeah, with all that being said and done, dream big and hustle hard. I'll see you again next time. Bye.